In news that's not only unexpected, but thought legally impossible, a publisher other than EA is making a AAA Star Wars game. The publisher in question is Ubisoft, and it has officially dispatched its internal team, Massive Entertainment, the Swedish studio behind 2016's The Division and 2019's The Division 2, to make an open-world Star Wars game running on Ubisoft's Snowdrop engine. Now, this is weird because publisher Electronic Arts has a 10-year deal with Disney to be the exclusive developer and distributor of AAA Star Wars games, but that deal was signed in 2013 and will be elapsing in less than 2 years. Thus, Massive's project has been essentially dated. We won't see it until 2023 at the earliest. This makes sense, as it's worth remembering that Massive is also working on a AAA open-world Avatar game that will presumably come out alongside Avatar 2 in 2022. All right, so this is step one. For the first time since the exclusivity deal was signed in 2013 with EA and Disney, a year after Disney bought Star Wars from Lucas, we're going to get a AAA Star Wars game. I am excited about who's making it, and I'm interested in what you think about them breaking out of that sarcophagus of mediocrity over at Electronic Arts.
That is an amazing term.
Thank you.
I love that.
Thank you.
No, this is awesome. This is all around pretty great news. I gotta be real, like, this is fantastic, and I love that Star Wars is finally out of that area, and finally, because I feel like we really had a lot of great Lucasfilm Star Wars games before that exclusivity deal, like a pretty good amount, and then they got that exclusivity deal, and we just got like 3 games, only 2 of which were good, and 1 of which started off really bad. So like this is nothing but good news. It means we're going to get more Star Wars games. It means we're probably going to get more interesting Star Wars games, as opposed to just like these focus group kind of authorized. I honestly, although in fairness, Rogue Squadrons I heard was pretty good.
That's true. That's the 4th one out of there. So I did say that there were 3, but there are 4.
Yeah, that is fair. I forgot about it because it's so VR centric, and I just haven't gotten around to it. But the thing that confuses me more about this specific item of news is Avatar 2 is happening still.
Yeah, apparently, I was looking this up in preparation for the show. Avatar 2 and Avatar 3 are apparently both filmed.
Oh, God.
And I guess it's just going to take a lot of post-production to get them out.
I don't. I wish I had the third eye that was necessary to see what is so special about Avatar, but I just don't see it, and I think that's a massive waste of their time. But the Star Wars news is awesome. I love this.
It's really interesting news because it just didn't seem like either side really gave a shit.
Yeah,
it wasn't going right. That was the thing that was so confusing.
You know what it felt like? It felt like EA was like, well, we got the license and no one else can do it, so whatever. No one can compete with us. And Disney was like, we own the world, so whatever. Just do what you want. And that's what it kind of came across like. It's like neither party really cared all that much.
Yeah,
and
it seems like that.
And amusingly enough, I think it's telling that the Star Wars games that EA was making got better and better over time, as this almost like it's like, oh man, we're not doing well. We gotta actually like start doing good shit. Good shit. It almost felt like they felt like they had to at the end. Like, because we just got Fallen Order like recently, and now the deal is up. It's like too little too late, I guess, but
yeah, it almost doesn't it kind of put into focus potentially the Fallen Order announcement that year at E3. Like, this might have been when the rubber was hitting the road for them, where they started to kind of get an inkling that they were gonna lose their window, because they did squander it, and Lucas squandered it too, because Star Wars is huge, and Mandalorian's obviously doing very well, and they're doing all this. But Star Wars, the zeitgeist of Star Wars, when they announced the new films, and then in 2015 they released the new one, and all of that, they totally just fucked it up. Like, they didn't have anything ready to go, and it was weird. I just thought it was peculiar. So I think EA is, well, and we'll talk about them in a second, but I'm sure they're disappointed. But I think Lucas is thrilled to get out of this deal, because there was a stupid idea to begin with. And I don't know why. Disney learned with Marvel and others to just pit all these studios in these and these publishers against each other. Like that way you get Spider-Man and you get all these great games. You don't need to just give it to one. Why would, and I think people kind of came in and said like, why did we do this? This doesn't make any sense. And what we want is people from all over the world to come pitch us, on what they would do.
Also, it just puts you in an unnecessarily hole, in an unnecessary hole when you're the owner of the IP. Like imagine like Square Enix comes to Marvel and they're like, oh man, I want an exclusivity deal for Marvel games. Like and then you give that to them and then you get Avengers and you don't get Spider-Man.
Right.
Like that sucks. Like you might as well, it's better to have Avengers and Spider-Man and have one of them fail than it is to just have one of them, I would argue. Because the chances are just better off for you. Just very weird that they went this route in the first place. I remember when I first heard about the exclusivity deal, I was like, why would you do that? Like I knew immediately back then, I was like, we're just gonna get less Star Wars games, like fewer, because that's just how that works.
It also, I would note that we lost probably the two most potentially exciting projects in that.
Yeah, 1313.
Yeah, 1313 was canceled because of the deal. And I know people that worked on that game, and they're pretty insistent that it was not only very far along, but really good. So we're never going to see that game again. That game, they scrapped that game to start again, and I think that was at the behest of EA. And then somewhere along the line, we also lost Ragtag, which was the Amy Hennig project, which was clearly going to be the most exciting thing to come out of that deal. So it's too bad that it worked out that way, but they've wrested it away. And what's good news is that it's not like they said like, well, now we're with Ubisoft. It's hopefully everyone's going to get involved, and we'll learn a little bit more as we talk more about who's getting involved and in what ways with Lucas, because there's a lot of news here, which is part of what makes this so complicated.
Get me a Jedi Power Battles 2.
Oh, give me a Masters of Terrascasi 2, and I'll be thrilled.
The fighting game?
Yeah, it was awful. That game was horrible. This is a really horrible game. That and I've said before, Yoda Stories, biggest waste of Star Wars money ever. I fucking hated that game too. Now here's an interesting one. I think this is speculative. I mean, it's definitely speculative. Might be wishful thinking, but it got me thinking when he wrote in. Richard Duffalo wrote in to us, said, "Hey guys, so a while ago, Cory Barlog tweeted out a thread about a Star Wars game he wants to see made, and I went to the thread. It's talking about The Mandalorian. He went into very specific detail about it. With news of the EA exclusivity deal ending, could the space game he supposedly be working on be a Star Wars game?" So when I first read this, a few people wrote in about this, and when I first read this, Chris, I was like, no. And I still feel like the answer is no, but I think it gave me pause where I'm like, why wouldn't they? I mean, why wouldn't Disney, after seeing what Insomniac did with Spider-Man, then say like, well, what else can you guys do for us?
Yeah.
And why wouldn't they want to maybe make an exclusive Star Wars game? So I don't think that's what Cory Barlog's doing. I kind of hope it isn't, because I would like to see them do a new IP, but that would be fucking nuts if what Sony Santa Monica was actually doing was a Star Wars exclusive, and that's what he was directing. That'd be crazy. That
would be crazy. I don't, but the thing is, if you're working on a game, typically you're not tweeting in depth about like what your game design philosophy would be. Just generally speaking, that's just not how people operate. If he was working on a Star Wars game, he wouldn't be tweeting that. Like that tweet wouldn't exist, I think. Like just fundamentally from just a base psychological perspective, it's like, why would you potentially give away the secret sauce of like what you're working on for free, just out in public? Just doesn't make any sense. Because a lot of people do that. A lot of people will be like, oh man, I want to see a speed racer game in this style with this, whatever the hell. And it's like, yeah, that's cool. And you're allowed to say that because you're not making it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my mind was like, well, it could be a red herring. No. He's also could just be very passionate, as many of us are, about Star Wars.
Yeah.
I just, I was like, well, maybe. I mean, I think the bigger question is not so much that, but would Sony get a Star Wars game? If Ubisoft's getting one, and others, why wouldn't, and Microsoft's getting one, which we're going to talk about in a little while, although it's another Lucas property, why wouldn't, well, we think Microsoft's getting it, we don't know quite yet, but why wouldn't Sony get their own? So this brings up some interesting questions, and I think it makes sense for us to spool up in our minds the possibilities of a first or second party Star Wars exclusive, because I think it's possible.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I think it would make sense, honestly. Like, why not? Why would you not try and go for that?
Especially because of what they did with Spider-Man. I mean, that's the big thing to me. It's not like they should be going and being like, look what they did with this property. these other guys? Why wouldn't we want to give them a bunch of stuff? So we'll see. We'll see what happens for sure. All right. The other thing that we didn't really talk about is who's making the game. We brought up that it was coming from Massive Entertainment. Massive, known for The Division. Now, some people are disappointed by this because they think this Star Wars game is going to be a game as a service or kind of a persistent game. I have to tell you guys this. Well, let me read Adam Stump and his question first. He says, Guten Tag, amigos. With Ubisoft making an open world Star Wars game, do you feel it'll just be a reskin of Assassin's Creed or Far Cry? Would you prefer a first or third person perspective? These are important questions. Also, I really like the addition of a video version of the podcast. Keep up the great work. Cheers. Thank you very much, Adam Stump. Now, it's going to be a third person shooter. And I'm not saying because I know, I'm just saying because look who's making it. And I get quite giddy about that. Imagine a Division game on Coruscant or in like some capital. Like it just takes place in one city, right? Or one place. And you're doing X, Y, and Z. I think that sounds dope. I don't know if that's exactly what they're going to do. But I'm a big Division fan, so I like Massive. I think they're great. So I'm where a lot of people see pessimism, Chris, I see optimism. What do you think?
Yeah. No, the Division 2 is a really great game that nobody talks about. I think because it's a live service game, and also because it's just not the biggest one. Like obviously, Destiny is like the juggernaut in that space, and it's the game that kind of feeds every other game that came after it. Like even just like simple things. Like I noticed even in freaking Immortals, like Immortals Phoenix Rising has the cursor, like the on-screen like console cursor, and it's like, what do you?
Yeah, I know. We noticed that when we were playing here too. I'm like, why?
It's just very weird. Like, it made sense in Destiny for the type of game it was, and it was also new at the time. But now it's like it's very common, and it's like interesting. But yeah, I think I don't know. This is exciting. Like even if it is like a live service type of game, Massive seems to have demonstrated that they know how to make a live service game that is also just fun to play, regardless of the live service elements. Because I really enjoy The Division, even though I don't play with anybody, and I don't care about loot in that game at all. I don't care about armor in that game at all. It just feels good moving from point A to point B and like fighting enemies and just like going through these like play spaces that are like really, really intricately designed and really well realized. I think they can handle the Star Wars IP really, really well. If it's not a live service game, then that's even better. But we'll see how it goes. But this is exciting. I guess it could be disappointing for people who like might have wanted a Division 3, I guess, because that's presumably just not going to happen if this goes through. But
because of the Avatar game too. I mean, I think they would be able to run both games, but I don't think that's the case.
I don't think they're big enough to run 3 big projects like that. Like 2 is already kind of like stretching it, I think, for most studios working on anything. So, Division 3 is likely not happening, but I don't know how in demand a third Division game is, especially because, even just going off of what Destiny did, like they just took Destiny 2 and was like, yeah, Destiny 2 is Destiny 3, fuck it, fuck a third one, who needs it? And, I think it would make sense to just keep supporting the Division loosely in that way while they move on to this really cool premise for a Star Wars game. I love this. Massive making a Star Wars game, hell yeah.
Well, I think there's a good sign, multiple good signs, let's say, in this, which is number one, I think it's a nice sign that they went to, or I guess thinking about how they knew, everyone knows the Avatar game's in development. This is a Fox property, but there's got to be some chatter behind the scenes that the game's coming along nicely. So maybe they're willing to give them the project. I think the second thing is the hint. And this is why you need people to listen to people that know things about video games, everyone. The hint is in the engine. They talked specifically about using Snowdrop. That's the hint. Assassin's Creed runs on Anvil and stuff like that. You're not going to get a game like this really vertical game. It's a different, those are both Ubisoft engines, but I think that by saying what they said, I think it was a signal about the kind of game that they're giving us, because Snowdrop really only runs The Division and a couple of other games. Like I think the second South Park RPG runs on it and stuff like that, but it's not what they use for the architecture of Far Cry or Assassin's Creed. Yeah. So the devil's in the details, my friend. And we'll see soon enough. I'm excited about this project, and I am disappointed that so many people are not excited about it. But like you said, people don't like The Division for some reason, and I think it's awesome. So
I think they just haven't played it. They're probably judging it based on how it looks. I think because I don't think you can play The Division 2 and come away from it being like that had no merit, that wasn't good. You might not necessarily like certain subjective elements of it, but that's a damn good game. It's a damn good third-person tactical shooter, like especially. The best one I've played in a long time.
Yeah, I don't have the experience you do, so I think that what you're saying almost, I think, carries more weight in some way because I don't have as much to compare it to. It was just one of those things that even the original one just really grabbed me, you know?
Yeah.
So I like third-person shooters. So I like first-person shooters too.